You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get into our last discussion of the day. There is a new wind blowing in the legal space of Lagos State. Governor Babajide Sanwo recently signed into law the Lagos State Anti-Corruption Bill. And this new law contains a statutory clause that gives Lagos State the exclusive right to probe cases of corruption that have to do with the state. And part of that is Section 13, subsection 3 of the Lagos Anti-Corruption Law reads, the Commission shall, upon the commencement, take over the investigation of all anti-corruption and financial crimes cases involving the finances and assets of Lagos State government being investigated by any other agency. And also Section 13, subsection 5 states that the Commission shall have the power to the exclusion of any other agency or body to investigate and coordinate the investigation of corruption and financial crimes cases involving the state. And this means that the state will now take over cases concerning it that are already in the hands of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. So that's the background to what we are talking about, and that's what we'll be talking about in the next couple of minutes. So I have joining me in the studio to make sense of this and to have an understanding of what the law is, Advocacy Officer, Human Rights Advancement Development and Advocacy Center, Yetunde Oyelesho. Good morning, Yetunde. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Great. Now, this law by Lagos State, when it was advanced, the idea was to, from what the government said, was to try to see how they can create accountability and ensure that they monitor, contracts, by, for the state government and monies of the state government, as the case may be. But when this came out, a lot of people have criticism for the law, saying that it counters what the EFCC and the ICPC stands for and all of that. Can you give us an understanding of the background why this law is at this time?
Thank you very much. As we all know, recently the anti-corruption law was passed into law, and the main aim is to actually abolish corrupt practices in Lagos State.
Okay.
And like you said, that Section 13, sub 3 and 5 has been a contention among people. But then, if you look at Section 15, sub 5 of the Nigerian Constitution, it gives the state right to make laws to abolish corrupt practices. And that is what the Lagos State House of Assembly has done. So the main aim of this law rather, is to abolish corruption. And this law is actually different a little bit from EFCC in the sense that it has a broader view of corruption. Its definition of corruption is further than financial corruption, financial crime.
Okay.
It includes some acts that were not corruption before, like abuse of office. It defines abuse of office as corrupt practice right now. It defines gratification, that is tipping someone to receive contract, or probably tipping someone to receive license. It defines that as corruption. And even handling of properties that has been used for collateral. If you handle it with fraudulent intent, it defines that as corruption.
So when you talk about the issue of abuse of office, how do you define what abuse of office could be? That
is you misusing the power vested in you. The office of the government is a body corporate. The office is not the person staying there. The office is an indigenous person. So when you get into that office and you do things that are for personal gains, that is abuse of office. Yeah, it still boils down to what could constitute that personal gain, when the point there is the office, although statutory, has its own entity, but the point there is that it must be occupied by a human being. Very well.
And the point that when you're occupying it as a human being, whatever you do at that time is supposed to be, or assumed to be, for the interest of that office and for the people for whom the office is made for. So how do we define issues of personal gain in that context? To
every organization, there are ethics there are laws that bound them. So by the time you act outside those laws, outside those prescribed acts for your own personal gain, that is abuse.
Give us an example of this so we can understand, because the issue there is sometimes it becomes difficult to draw the lines between when something is personal and when the occupier of the office is saying, well, whatever I did for the interest of the people and for the office.
Okay, let me give you an example. For example, awarding contract to construct a road, because for a local government that is yours. And meanwhile, there are other local governments that need that road better than that local government. So, for example, there are places in Lagos State right now that they do not have good roads. And probably the assignment you're meant to do is to award contract. You're meant to look at those places that needs the road, not places that already have such privileges. So, you awarding contract to an area that does not probably need it, because there are some areas that actually...
Yeah, but who defines the place not needing it? Because that's, you see, these are the issues, because when the law is vague,
okay,
and someone decides to, do it in a certain way, the law didn't specify that I should not. So the context of I did it this way because the law didn't say I should not do it this way. So when you have a situation like that and then somebody says you have contravened, and you're like, how have I contravened when the law did not specify that I should not? For instance, if I come from Ikorodu local government, for instance, let's put it that way, and there are bad roads in Mushin, there are bad roads in Amo Odofin, there are bad roads in areas like Badagry, for instance. But because I come from Ikorodu and I decide to site an industry in Ikorodu, I decide to tar all the roads in Ikorodu and all of that, would I have done something wrong in the eyes of the law? Originally, people in Ikorodu, they are Lagosians and they are under, they are entitled, they have the rights to benefit whatever they need to benefit. So how do we reconcile that?
The fact that that contract is not meant for personal gain. You see, the core factor of this is personal gain. Sometimes people award contracts that it's because they're going to benefit from it personally, not for the public. So long there is personal gain in it, and it wouldn't benefit the public that so well.
All right.
Then.
So is it challenging to define what personal gains could be in this context?
It's not challenging,
All
but
right.
then it's mixed up.
Yeah, because the point there is, if the law has not specified, so long as it doesn't have to do with the issue of stealing, where monies have been stolen and it is misappropriated, where, okay, you are supposed to have allocated, 10 billion naira for a road contract, and the road is supposed to cost 10 billion, and then you inflated the price by maybe 15 billion, and as the case may be. In a situation like that, it's clear and it is obvious and it's very open. But a situation where you're talking about, okay, a contract to be allocated to where you come from, when if there is a need, why not?
But stealing is actually part of abuse of office too.
No, of course, I'm saying that one is clear cut. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That in that situation is clear cut. Okay. But if you cite an instance of, okay, I give contract to a local government I come from, for instance, how do we define that to be an abuse of office?
It may not be obvious that it's an abuse of office, but personally, within the circle in which you award the contract to, it's an abuse of office.
So it remains an issue of legal tussle whether to decide or to determine whether that is an abuse of office or not.
Very well.
Okay, so let's situate this issue. Like you see, the section 13, subsection 3 of the law that we talked about. Okay. A lot of people say that situating this alongside the EFCC Act, they contradict each other. How does this law sit with the EFCC regulations and all of that?
Very well. We have to know that the EFCC tackles financial crime. And this new Lagos State law tackles beyond financial crime. And like I will say, Section 15, Sub 5 of the Constitution has given the state responsibility to make laws to abolish corrupt practices. And if you should look at the interpretation law at Section 318 of the same Constitution, it interprets states beyond federal government, in which EFCC tackles financial crime across all states in Nigeria, but Lagos State tackles corruption, not just financial crime, in the state. So I cannot see any contravention between both of them.
In a situation where you are, of course, you want to tackle corruption, and the corruption in question that we're looking at right now boils down to or talks about or leans on the issue of finances, where originally the EFCC has the powers to handle it, or is even going ahead to handle it already. When we have a situation like that, how do we reconcile it? Because this section here that has generated a lot of, in fact, we had to put it here because so many persons have made comments regarding this. Let me read it out so that people can also understand that the Commission shall, upon the commencement, take over the investigation of all anti-corruption and financial cases or financial crime cases involving the finances and assets of Lagos State government being investigated by any other agency. This is Section 13, subsection 3. Of the same law? Yeah, of the same law.
Okay, Section 4 of the Constitution gives the gives the State House of Assembly right to make laws for the orderliness and good governance of a state. And this law has been made for this purpose. So EFCC, they taking over cases from EFCC is not the novel cases. It's not the novel case. Even though this particular section, it's an area where the court, I'm very sure as a lawyer, is the court is still going to make verdict on it. I'm very sure. But then taking over cases from a country, from a state, it's not, this section is not the novel case. If you look at the Roman Statute of the International Criminal Law,
ICC.
Yes, it gives the International Criminal Court right to take over cases that the country is not ready to prosecute in relation to genocide and its likes. So if you look at this too, in relation to that, Lagos State has actually exercised their own power. The Constitution has given them power to make policies, has given them right to make laws to abolish corruption. They've done their part. So they're just following the Constitution, even though it can be contended in the court of law.
All right. So are you looking forward to a contention in court regarding this? Because the point there is the federal government who came up with the established the EFCC and ICPC and all of that may see it from their own perspective and saying that, especially when you're talking about financial crimes and then the Lagos State having the power to take over cases that any other body that is handling concerning Lagos State and its finances, the federal government has, in fact, based on the Constitution, where any law that is made and is inconsistent with the federal laws of the federal government will have an upper hand in that regard. So are you seeing a contention coming from there from the federal government?
Very well. This is not the first time that you'll be finding Attorney General of a state contending with Attorney General of the Federation. So they might contend it, but like I will say, Section 15, Sub 5 of the Constitution says that it gives the states responsibility to make laws to abolish corrupt practices. And if you look at the interpretation of the definition of state, it cuts across all federal arms. That's the federal government, meaning the federal government can make their laws, the state government can, even the local government can make their law. They can contend it, but Lagos State is just exercising the power given to them.
All right. So what is going to change with this law now? Let's see what scenarios can change?
A lot is going to change, for real, because this law has a broader view of what corruption is. It extends to, in fact, in Lagos State right now, according to this law, if you're a public servant and you live beyond your legitimate source of income, this commission established by this law can investigate you for corruption. Even receiving stolen properties is defined as corruption right now. And also gratification, sex for a job, is seen as corruption right now. So it's going to change a lot of things. And this law is so robust that it's binding on so many people: the ministry, the departments, parastatals, agencies, and also companies registered under the CAC, which that is registered by Lagos State, and their officials, even their staff. This law will be binding on them. So it covers the highs and the lows. It covers those in the government, even those public servants, even the commoner.
Now, the issue of laws in Nigeria, like everyone has said, in fact, I'm glad you're a lawyer. We have laws covering every aspect of life, almost every aspect of life already, except maybe for science and technology, invention, and all those areas that we don't have those things yet. But the point there is, Nigerians have more concern for the implementation of laws than the enactment of it. What could change when it comes to, because if this law is supposed to be celebrated by Lagosians to say, okay, this is going to ensure accountability, this is going to root out corruption of every kind, what should change when it comes to implementation, and how ready is Lagos State to implement this law to the letter?
Okay. Presently, the commission has not started working, and to every law, implementation is what matters. And Lagos has been proactive in their laws, very proactive. If they can follow and implement this law like they've been doing with other statutes, it's really going to make a lot of changes. It's really going to make a lot of changes.
What do you see changing when it comes to implementation in practical terms, if we have to follow it that way? How should they go about making this a difference? Because where we are right now as a country, not just Lagos, where we are now as a country, where Nigerians are complaining in security, complaining in economy, complaining in politics, complaining in social, whatever, it's a product of continuous generational corruption, right from independence, you know, and it degenerates until now. So what should you see, or what should Lagosians expect differently, so that if this is implemented and there's accountability, because Nigerians still feel that there is so much wealth and money in this country that can go around making every Nigerian so prosperous, more than any other country in Africa. So what should we be expecting? What Lagosians should be expecting?
A certain part of that law gives the public the opportunity to lodge in their complaint. And if this law will actually be followed strictly, I will suggest a recommendation that the interest of the public to be protected, in the sense that anybody can lodge complaints without fear of threats. There's provision for public to lodge in their complaint, to even initiate investigation. Once they suspect that someone is into some suspicious act, they can lodge in complaint. But then, on my own personal recommendation, I recommend that they should be protected. That's the only way people can speak.
Protection? You see, so these are the things, because the point there is, you see that there is this suspicion, natural suspicion, between Nigerians, the average Nigerian, and any government official. They just feel government is them against us every time. So when a law comes, in fact, the criticism against this law is from that premise, where they're saying, oh, they're coming up with another law again to protect themselves. So there's always a them, you know, for politicians and leaders somewhere, and then us, the average Nigerian, on the other hand. Or if you even turn it, it's like them Nigerians and us, the politicians. So who does the protecting when, if at all, there is a motive, like you were talking about the occupier of the office earlier? If he has a vested interest on any issue at all, from contract to appointment to anything at all, and then there's a complaint that is lodged. How do we handle a situation like that? Because it's just one thing for you to lodge your complaints, another thing for us to see to the end.
Yeah, there's check and balances.
Okay.
Yes, and that is why the autonomous power is not vested in the chairman. You have the age of the final decision. Once that commission investigates a case, they send it to Attorney General of Lagos State, and it goes to the court. So there's check and balance.
Who is appointed by the governor?
Yes. But then there's check and balances, irrespective of how it is. Irrespective of how it is, there's still check and balances.
All right, we have to leave it here now. I believe there will be time for us to break down this law and then make Nigerians or Lagosians, this is for Lagosians now, understand aspects of it, and then also, you know, make people comment on it and then see how they can buy into understanding what the thing is. Yetunde Oyelesho, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.